HOA president stood on my dock at 7 a.m., screaming about my illegal boat ruining our community lake while literally trespassing on my private property to threaten me with a lawsuit over my own water. Karen Whitmore's stiletto heels dug into the cedar planks I'd personally stained last summer, waving a cease and desist letter like some kind of legal weapon. This rust bucket is gone by Friday sterling, or I'm calling my lawyer and the sheriff, $200 a day in fines. Plus, we're putting a lien on this shack you call a home. The diesel scent from my restored '87 Chris Craft mixed with her sickeningly sweet perfume as she jabbed her blood-red nail toward my pride and joy. What she didn't know, that community lake she kept screaming about. Every drop of it, all 47 acres, was mine. But here's the thing about bullies. They always tell you exactly how they plan to destroy themselves. So, I just smiled, sipped my coffee, and let Karen dig the hole that would bury her HOA career forever. What would you do if someone tried to steal your own property right in front of you? Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what's your worst HOA horror story? Let me back up 18 months to when this whole nightmare started. I'm Marcus Sterling, 52, spent 25 years in Army logistics before I got smart and retired to the mountains. My Uncle Theodore left me this little cabin on what I thought was just another pretty lake in Colorado. The old guy was always the family oddball, lived like a hermit, but somehow had money stashed everywhere. The cabin wasn't much to look at. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen that belonged in 1970. But man, that view, sitting on the back porch with morning coffee, watching the mist rise off perfectly still water while loons called back and forth. That's what peace sounds like after decades of military chaos. The lake's shaped like a teardrop. 47 acres of pristine mountain water surrounded by 12 modest homes. Nothing fancy, just regular folks who wanted quiet retirement spots. At least that's what I thought until I met Karen Whitmore. Karen moved in 3 houses down about 6 months after me. White BMW, white teeth, white lies. Everything about her screamed, "I don't belong here, but I'm taking over anyway." She's 48, sells real estate, and married to some city council wannabe named Derek. Within 2 weeks of unpacking, she was elected HOA president. Amazing how that works when you're the only one who actually wants the job. My first red flag should have been when she introduced herself. I was out on the dock working on my boat engine, the Chris Craft I'd bought as a wreck and spent 3 years restoring. Every bolt, every piece of mahogany, every chrome fitting had been lovingly rebuilt. She clip-clopped down in those ridiculous heels, smiled her realtor smile, and said, "Oh, you're the military man. Well, I hope you understand we maintain certain standards around here." Certain standards, like that phrase, doesn't drip with condescension. The boat became her obsession. Too big, she said, too loud. Didn't match the aesthetic vision she had for our waterfront community. Never mind that half the other docks had boats just as large. Never mind that mine was probably the most beautiful vessel on the water. Karen had decided I was the problem, and Karen always got her way. The smell of her perfume, something expensive that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, lingered on the dock long after she left. But mixed with the honest scent of cedar shingles warming in morning sun and the creosote from old dock pilings, it felt like an invasion, like someone had sprayed artificial flowers in a real garden. That first violation notice arrived on a Tuesday, crisp white paper, official HOA letterhead, and enough legal-sounding threats to intimidate anyone who didn't know better. Oversized recreational vessel violates community aesthetic standards per Covenant 14.7b. $200 daily until removed. Here's the thing about military training. It teaches you to gather intelligence before you react. So instead of getting angry, I got curious. Who was this woman who thought she could order around a retired Army officer on his own property? And more importantly, what didn't I know about Uncle Theodore's little gift that might change the game entirely? Because if there's one thing 25 years of logistics taught me, it's that the person with the best information usually wins. And something told me Karen hadn't done her homework nearly as well as she thought. Karen didn't waste time turning up the heat. 3 days after that first violation notice, she called an emergency HOA meeting. Of course, she scheduled it for 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, when most working folks couldn't attend. Classic power play, stack the deck, control the narrative, win by default. I showed up anyway, carrying my little green deployment notebook and a thermos of coffee that smelled better than Karen's overpriced perfume already choking her pristine living room. Her house looked like a furniture showroom explosion, all white leather and glass tables designed to intimidate visitors into not touching anything. She'd gathered her usual suspects, 3 retirees who nodded at everything she said, plus Derek lurking in the corner like a nervous accountant counting someone else's money. "Ladies and gentlemen," Karen began, clicking open her laptop with the theatrical precision of a prosecutor announcing murder charges. "We have a situation that threatens the character of our entire community. A PowerPoint presentation, 20 slides about my boat." I'm not kidding. She'd photographed my Chris craft from bizarre angles, low shots that made it look like the Titanic, wide shots that somehow made a 30-foot boat appear to consume the entire lake. The woman had talent. I'll give her that. Evil talent, but talent nonetheless. "Mr. Sterling's vessel," she pronounced vessel like it was a venereal disease, "exceeds our size restrictions and creates unsafe navigation hazards. Furthermore, the engine noise disrupts our peaceful community atmosphere during early morning hours." I sat there listening to this Academy Award performance, documenting every accusation in my notebook. My old sergeant used to say, "Sterling, when someone's digging their own grave, don't grab the shovel. Just hand them a bigger one." When she finished her dog and pony show, I raised my hand politely. "Ma'am, I appreciate the presentation. Professional quality, but I have some questions." Her realtor smile tightened like a guitar string about to snap. "Could you clarify these size restrictions? I've read our covenants twice, actually, and can't find specific boat length limits." I flipped through my copy, every relevant section marked with neat military precision. "Well," Karen's voice pitched higher, "it's clearly implied in the aesthetic standards clause." Implied. Interesting. I made a note, the pen scratching loud in the sudden quiet. Second question. Derek's got 2 jet skis plus that cigarette boat. What's their combined length? Because from my dock, they look roughly equivalent to my single vessel. The sound of Derek's gulp was audible from across the room. But here's where my 25 years of dealing with military bureaucrats paid dividends. I'd spent the morning at City Hall, and bureaucrats love helping veterans navigate red tape. Also, fascinating discovery at the permit office today. Derek's dock extension, no application on file. That's actually a municipal code violation requiring immediate remediation. Funny how these things work out. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a bass gasping in the boat well. "How dare you investigate? Just following your lead on community standards, ma'am. Due diligence and equal enforcement." The crunch of gravel interrupted her sputtering Betty Jaime's ancient Buick announcing reinforcements. Betty, 73, taught high school English for 4 decades and could dismantle teenagers' arguments with surgical precision. Karen never stood a chance. "Sorry I'm late, dear," Betty said, bustling in with homemade snickerdoodles that made Karen's store-bought cookies look like cardboard circles. "I was admiring Marcus's boat. Reminds me of the classics from when people built things to last instead of impress." Then Betty leaned close, whispering just loud enough for the entire room. Theodore had boxes of old papers in that basement. Legal documents, surveys, all sorts of interesting history. Might be worth exploring sometime. I've played poker with colonels and contractors. I know a tell when I see one. The flash of panic across Karen's face wasn't subtle. It was neon sign obvious. Years later, I realized that moment taught me something crucial about fighting bullies who abuse official power. They're only strong when you don't know the rules better than they do. Document everything, research deeper than they expect, and watch them crumble when their bluffs get called. The meeting ended with Karen promising to research the matter further, and me promising to review all available documentation. But we both knew this was just round 1 of a fight she'd started without knowing her opponent's qualifications. Walking home under darkening skies, I could smell rain approaching over the mountains, that electric ozone scent that warns of storms brewing. Something told me Karen's PowerPoint presentation was just the first lightning flash before the real thunder started. Karen didn't appreciate having her bluff called. Within a week, she'd escalated from neighborhood theater to full-scale warfare, and her first move was bringing in outside muscle. The city inspector showed up on a gray Tuesday morning, clipboard in hand, and the weary expression of a man who'd seen too many petty neighbor disputes. His name was Rodriguez, and he had the look of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. "Got a complaint about dock safety violations," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Anonymous tip.